Hi! It's Jeff!
And Jordan.
And we're going to talk about
Byzantio.
by Ludicreations, coming to Kickstarter early August
2013.
2013. Good point.
If you're listening to this next year,
You're too
don't
late.
go looking for it.
If you listened to it last year, we did it! Alright, Ludicreations is kind of a area control, secret scoring game.
Byzantio would be.
Huh?
Byzantio would be the area control. Ludicreations would
Oh,
be
Ludicreations would be
the company.
who made it.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
The help I have.
Byzantio is an area control secret scoring game that you have limited actions that you can use, and so you have to choose your actions wisely and try to use them to basically take control of the empire and make your pretender of the throne the real throne controller. I don't know.
How you do not have a career in public speaking.
I'm tired!
No. Well, that's your excuse this time, but we've done other videos.
Yeah, I have no excuse for those. Sorry.
So yeah, as Jeff said, it's secret scoring, it's area control, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to give you 10 or 15 minutes of mediocre video here in just a few minutes. And
That's why you tune in.
That's right. And then we'll cut back.
Not us.
It's the cat. And then we'll cut back with our final thoughts. So the mechanics and componentry for Byzantio are pretty simple. Components, as we received, and keeping in mind this is pre-production, are your various meeples. It's a 4-player game, and it comes with purple, red, yellow, and blue. It has your pretender to the throne for marking its specific position on the map. It comes with the turn marker. This moves along the turn track. It comes with a D8. Don't know if it's going to be specifically this kind of clear D8, but it will have a D8 of some sort. And then it also has your city scoring and your action tracker. The top half, you mark in your dynasty name, which is just your player, or since I generally play purple, I just put in Dynasty Purple.
They actually do have names for each of the locations in the rule book,
Yes.
but we just usually use color.
I'm not that fluffy, so. And then when we get into mechanics, we'll discuss these, but you're going to put down the cities you think you will be controlling by the end of the game, and these will score in descending order, 14 points for the first all the way down to 6 for the last. And the bottom half of the page is your action trackers, and we'll get to the actions in a minute. And then the very bottom third is some bonus point scoring at the end. You will take a guess at which city you think your opponent's high scoring, their 14-point city, which city you think your opponent's first city on their scorecard is. So it's got 3 lines because it can go up to 4 players, so you can have up to 3 opponents that you'll need to guess. And that's a bonus of 5 points for each correct guess, or if you're really good, deductive reasoning. For my purposes, I will say guess. Also, they're separate right now, but we're making an assumption that they will eventually be printed.
Or it'll be part of the variants.
Or part of the variants, yeah. At least 2 of these should probably be printed on the map. This is the start your first square and direction. That'll go here. And then we have various events that happen every 6 turns. And then there is the end of game. It'll go down here. Once you get that, it's the final round, and then scoring is done. And Jeff, you've got the book, so why don't you explain each of the events?
Sure. We've got Earthquake, which will be and we'll talk about these in the order that they currently happen on the board. So Earthquake here is going to be round 6, and when that happens, you'll roll the D8, and if you notice on the map here, they're kind of light on the prototype map, but there are numbers associated with each province. Whatever you roll, so in this instance I rolled a 7, you'll look at all of them that show a 7, and anyone who has garrison tokens there, so that would be your smaller meeples. Let's see, Jordan was there, I was here. These are both the 7, and since the earthquake hit, anybody with garrison tokens there basically has them removed and gets them back in their supply. So that's earthquake. Then we go to famine, which is again another roll of the D8. So now we're looking at 6, and what happens there is if you have garrison tokens there, you're going to roll this again, and on a 5 through 8, you're safe. On a 1 through 4, you have to remove a garrison token. Now, if your pretender to the throne is there with you, you're actually safe on a 4 through 8. So that's that event. And then we have Succession of the Patriarch. And what's going to happen there is when you go back to, let's see if we get in there good, the score sheet here, up at the top, you see there's a bottom line there that has a -2 by it. What you're going to be allowed to do at that point, and this is about the midway of the game, you're going to be able to take one of your cities up top and say, I'm no longer going to be trying to control that one. I'm going to choose a different city, but you're going to take -2 points for whatever spot you had that on. So if you take one of your 10s and you put it down and you cross that out and choose a new one, the new city is going to be worth 8 if you control it. So that's what that lets everybody do. So you get basically like a one-time shot to rethink which cities you're going to control. And then we have Plague. And what happens on Plague is, again, it's the D8. So you roll the D8, roll the 2 there. Anywhere there's a 2, if somebody's pretender to the throne is there, the person to their left gets to move it to wherever they want it to be. So if I was here, Jordan would be able to move that some other place on the board, away from where maybe my planning was going on. And when we start talking about the actions, you'll see why these guys might matter in that instance. And then this is, again, it's just the end game thing, so it's just going to go on the last spot, and it's your last round, and then scoring will happen. One other thing we should say, besides this one and this one, so the 4 disaster type events, when those happen, you've got, again, going back to our score sheet and all the actions we have on the bottom down here, when those happen, you don't actually get to take an action during the disasters. You actually have to pick one and mark it off. And there are exactly 30 actions on here. So basically you're deciding 4 times in the game what action you're not going to use at all during the game. So you've got a limited number of each action. So that's what happens on those. So we'll basically, that guy will go there, this guy will go on the end, earthquake goes on 6, and famine, and then succession, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right?
No, that's only 5. 1, 2,
6
3
there. And then we've got plague, which, nope. Be nice if they used those consistently.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6. There you go. So that's where they currently they're not printed on the board, but by the rules, these are the spots they always go in. But they are talking about some variants, so I'm assuming since they pulled those off, it might be part of the variants they're talking about, but we don't have access to any variants at the moment. And that's the...
Alright, as mentioned on the score sheet, you have exactly 30 actions to choose from over the course of the game. 1 action for each turn. And as mentioned, on each of the disaster squares, you will lose an action. The actions are just icons here, but they have some basic definition here.
description.
So the first icon is campaign. If you campaign, you will move your pretender from one territory, one province, into an adjacent province. You may then lay down one of your meeples, and if there is an opposing meeple there, it is removed, just straight up. There's no dice combat, it's simple place and replace. So that's campaign, and on the board it tells you how many of each of these actions are on your card. It's not on the card, but you do have check boxes. So you've got 10 campaign actions over the course of 30 turns. The second, well, I'm going to go this way. The second is, what is that, muster? Muster. So if your pretender is in an area, you just put down a troop in the province you're already in. The second is muster.
This is going to be a good video.
Without having to move your pretender, it allows you to just put a troop in the city you're in. This does not bypass the rule that says you cannot have 2 units in there until your opponent has at least 1. That is a basic rule. This does not bypass that. The third...
And there can only ever be 4 tokens in a city. 4 garrison tokens in a city.
Good point. So in a 2-player game, each player can have up to 2. In a 4-player game, if everybody was in the city, each player would only have 1. The third is
negotiate.
And as you'll see, there's a die component to this one. The aforementioned D8. Negotiation, you will suggest trading troops between any 2 cities. So if I've got Hadrianopolis and Jeff has, something I can't pronounce.
Angira?
Yes.
Ancira? Actually, it looks like a C.
It does. I might suggest, let's trade. He will, of course, say no.
No! But I can say yes.
He could say yes.
If I say yes, it just happens.
Yeah. But if he says no,
no!
Then the D8 comes in.
No! Alright. So Jordan successfully navigated the swap, which again, the basic rule on almost all die rolls is 5 through 8 is your success. So that would be a swap. So he would get to basically make me go to this location and he would get this location. Now, on a 4, it would not happen, but
all dice rolling is impacted by your pretender.
Yeah, you actually want to make this for this one.
Yes. If your pretender is in the province you're trying to manipulate, your success goes from 5 through 8 to 4 through 8.
Yeah. So since Jordan has his pretender to the throne here in the city that he's trying to swap into, he only needs a 4 through 8 to make this a successful action. Alright.
The fourth is...
Which way are you? Oh, you're... expel.
Expel. And again, you'll see the die token, so this is another semi-random one. This just essentially forces a opponent's troop out of a province.
Anywhere on the board.
So again, 5 through 8, and I successfully expel somebody from a city. This is a good way, when we get to scoring we'll talk about it, but a contested city halves its score value, so this is a good way of just removing somebody if you don't have the meeples to of it by force. This is just a good way to remove somebody. The fifth action is bribery, I believe.
Yep, bribe. Yep.
And it's kind of like the previous action. It does have the D8, but rather than expelling, you get, if you succeed, which I did not there, you expel a dude and turn him into one of yours, essentially. So you bribe him over to your side.
Alright, so yeah, if Jordan rolled a 6, he would be like, no, that's my city now, here's your guy back.
It's important to note that bribery does not actually remove the meeple from your opponent's pool. There's nothing here that removes units from play. They're just either on the board or in your supply. Then the last action is Advance. And this is where your pretender, rather than with campaign where he can only move adjacently, Advance he can move anywhere on the board. It's just one move. You do not get to drop a unit in there like you do with the campaign. You don't get to do anything except reposition your... so those are the 6 actions. As noted, on the board, it tells you how many there are of each. They recommend, or at least we played it, marking off down here the turn we did it in. So turn 1, you do a campaign. I put a 1. Turn 2, I do an advance. I do a 2 here. It doesn't really matter how you track it. We were just doing turn numbers. As long as by the end of the game, everybody's got 30 X's in a box somewhere, that means everybody's all had the right amount of actions.
I think we question it a little bit. I mean, it is in the rules to break down the number, but there were a couple times, I mean, during the game, people were like, okay, we're on 22 now? No, this is actually 23.
Yeah.
It's kind of thing. So I think it did kind of help a little bit to have the numbers in there sometimes.
So from a mechanics standpoint, it's fairly straightforward. You're going to take 1 action a turn. The game starts off very quickly when everybody has 30 actions. The first third or so of the game is going to go fairly quickly. After that, as options become a little bit more scarce, a little bit more, well, I'm not going to go all the way to AP, but a little bit more analysis does happen, especially with your bribe and your expel. Those are pretty powerful. They just remove things.
And then, but early game, you don't really think about it.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance, like, oh, I got to give up an action here. Oh, I'm not using these right now anyway, kind of thing happening. So you really got to watch what you're giving up too.
So about a third of the way through, you start to have fewer options. Then by the last third of the game, you're really wanting to ensure you, or at least you want to make sure you're doing the best move you think you're doing. What you do might not necessarily be the best move. So at the core, it's an area control game. But it's not like Risk or anything like that where it's dice rolling for combat. The area you're trying to control is totally determined by your choice of score cities. There's not a lot of confrontation. You can bicker over a city, but you're never going to be throwing dice to see who owns it, beyond the kind of semi-random nature of the expel or the bribe. As with all kind of area control, the map is laid out in your provinces, and you've got, your lines over water to denote, how to get to the more remote provinces. It's, I think it's laid out very well. I'd be interested to see the final product and what the turn tracker and the disasters end up looking like. But
they also have starting spots for all 4 players on the board right now. And the other thing to note is you'll see there's a slight difference between these 2 cities here, and you'll see it throughout the board. The only way that matters is by number of players. If you have a 2 or 3 player game, you're going to use the larger looking cities. And then if you have a full 4 player game, you're going to use basically every city on the board. So that's the only reason for the difference between the 2 city icons.
Prior to play, you'd put your red on your red and your purple on your purple. And then you would look at what cities you're going to try to score this turn. So I'll throw my card up here because I have filled it out ahead of time since we're not actually doing a whole game. So you'll see I've picked my top 7, going with the high scoring first down to the bottom. I haven't yet entered anything into the -2 score because we're not there, and I'm generally awesome, so I won't need to change any of my city selections. And as you can see, we haven't started actually doing anything yet, so my turn trackers are all empty. And just for the sake of example, I filled in the very bottom, guessing, I forget what I guessed, what Jeff's most important city is going to be.
They're all important to me, Jordan.
No, you always love one a little bit more.
Alright, and I've done the same. And with, once you have it filled out, you actually do fold it in half so that the cities that you're going for are underneath and hidden, and then you'll be tracking your actions here. But the kind of cool thing is, you got your actions here, and then, okay, you can flip it back up towards you to kind of check out your cities, because of course, you're not, unless you're Sheldon or something, you're not memorizing these.
Especially not until you've memorized the geography of the map.
Yeah.
So, randomly determine who goes first. I randomly determine my awesomeness goes first. So, my first action is just going to be to muster in the city I'm in the province. Oh, that's an important thing to note. Your pretender goes in a province. He doesn't actually count towards occupation of a city. Mm-hmm. So, I'm just going to muster into Tiana and mark off one of my muster actions.
Actually, there's one more thing we should point out.
Mm-hmm.
When you're picking the 7 cities that you're going to control, it's probably not gonna it's not gonna happen as much in a 2-player game because you only have you're using the larger cities. But in a 4-player game especially, like this province right here has 2 cities in it. I can't choose both of these cities. The 7 cities you pick have to be in different provinces. And then if you decide to switch one out, it still has to be in a different province than any of the ones that you kept. So that's kind of an important thing too when you're picking your cities. Alright, so you just mustered where you were?
Yep.
I think I will do a campaign. So we're using the big there. So turn 1 for me was campaign. Alright, so then we move the turn tracker. We're on turn 2.
So for my second turn, I'm just going to move outright over to here using
Advance?
advance.
Alright. What do I want to do? I think I'll just campaign again. Go there.
So for my third turn, I'm going to try to bribe Jeff's meeple here in Ingria. So I'll mark it off on my my turn tracker card. I'm not in there, so success is only on 5+. So I'll roll the die. I get a 3. I'm not successful. He retains control of that city, or at the very he maintains control of that.
My
meeple,
garrison stays there.
and but I've used the turn. Failure does not return the action to you.
Alright, so I guess I will try. I'll do the negotiate right here. Would you like to make the switch?
I would not. No, go away.
Alright, so my meeple, or my pretender to the throne is here. So I don't get the +1 to the roll because I'm trying to go here. So I need a 5 through 8. And it works.
So totally against my will, he moves us around.
Yay!
Never one to be outdone though. On turn 4, I'm going to now try to expel him from there. And again, my pretender's way over here, so I'm not going to get the bonus. So it's just straight up 5+.
No.
And my powers are weak.
Alright, so then for my turn 4, I'm just going to muster where we are into that city.
So now this city is contested. If we both had Amorium as our first city, the 14-point score value, When it came down to the end of turn 30 and this city was still contested by the two of us, we would both score half the score value. So if this was our 14-point city, we would each get 7 points. In a 3-player game, if there was a third player splitting that, each player would then get 2 points. Doesn't matter the value of its scoring position. And in a 4-player game, if all 4 people are contesting it, nobody gets any points. That was 4 rounds showing all the 4 actions. All the 6 actions, I should say.
I was gonna, let's just go to 6 so we do one event.
Oh, fine then. We'll do one event too. I'll just throw stuff all over because I'm awesome. So we would go 2 more turns to turn 6.
So we're just gonna throw some guys out here and see if this will happen. So if we got to turn 6, this is the earthquake.
So we roll.
7.
7s are
Here and here. So since I have a guy here, the earthquake takes out my garrison. Again, not removing it from the game, just taking it off the map and putting it back in my supply. And that's the gist of how event. Oh, and then we would also have to come on to our sheet and say, okay, I am no longer, let's say, I'm not going to do a campaign, so I'll X one off, and now I've lost 1 campaign action that I can use for the rest of the game.
And that's it, really. It's going to repeat every turn that you're going to take your action. Up to 4 players are each going to take their action for the turn. And at each disaster, you'll proc whatever happens. You'll lose a figure in the earthquake. You might lose a figure in the drought. Famine, I should say. All that stuff is randomized by the die. And each disaster, as mentioned, you do lose a turn. You're never going to get to turn 30 and have a turn left over. Have a square left over. If you've done that, somebody has missed a turn. And they deserve to lose. At the end, when you're doing the scoring, for instance, in this game, I picked Ephesius as Jeff's primary city. Was that correct?
That is not correct.
So I would not get 5 bonus points. So at that point, you just total up all your scoring. If you successfully control all cities, you get full points for each. Otherwise, you divide up your points by half or 2 for a 3-way split. You do your math. If you swapped out one of your cities in the 3rd action, you add your bonus points, and then highest number wins. It's
tie goes to, if there's a tie goes to turn order.
a theoretical advantage to first player there.
Right.
Yeah. But only theoretical. It's a fairly straightforward game. There's a little bit of grinding there as you plan later out in the game itself, but all your actual options that you can do are fairly straightforward. The rules, again, pre-prod, as we've received, fairly straightforward, not a lot of gray areas.
No, this was very simple to pick up and learn.
And the game board, again, pre-prod, so we don't know what the finished product is going to look like in terms of the events, whether these are going to be random, because they've said it's going to be a two-sided map or perhaps a second map.
That one of the stretch goals is going to be a double-sided map, where the other side is a fantasy-based setting that plays, I guess, a little bit different. We don't have a lot of details on it, just kind of seeing what the board potentially may look like. They've also said the board will be bigger, so not sure how all that'll play out, but that's kind of what we know for right now. I mean, what they're planning with the Kickstarter.
I mean, even if they don't make the board bigger, I think this is a good size. Your iconography is easily visible. Your city names are easily visible and readable once you get used to the font. And it does have that kind of curled edges, old world map to it. You know, from a graphic design standpoint, I like the look of it.
No, I agree. I like the look and style of it, and font could change for me to make it a little more readable. This is some of it's a little light, but I get that from the old world setting. So you kind of got to look sometimes, or if you're in bad lighting, your province borders might not show up well. But overall, I had a good time with this game. It's got some interesting things going on with it.
So, final thoughts. Byzantio by Ludicreation. Go.
I don't think.
No, this is true. He does not think.
I kind of like this game. They've given us some hints about variants. I'd love to see what the variants are, because I do think there are some things that I would like to see a little bit different, or there are some variants that we've thought of just from the little bit of play we've gotten so far. And this is one that we will be reviewing fully on the podcast here. Actually, the next time we get together to record, we're going to do a full review. But as it stands, I think it's a fairly solid game. I think it does what they were trying to do with it. But I do think there's some tweaks that I would like to see.
I agree. Given what we've received and the rules, it appears that they've put out the game that they want to put out. Again, pre-prod, so I'm not going to go into all the stuff that I like or don't like, but the game as it's written, I think it runs well.
All right. So, what's the game?
Byzantio.
Who made it?
Ludicreations.
When is it going on Kickstarter?
Early August.
See, you can train a monkey. So, all right, that's Byzantino by Ludicreation Games.
Byzantio.
Byzantio. I'm freaking tired. Shut up. Byzantio by Ludicreation Games. Kickstarter early August. All Us Geeks full review early August as well. So thanks for checking it out.
See you next time.